So I think we're going to go ahead and get kicked off now. So welcome to the interoperability demonstration on OID for VP and DC API. The overall objective for this session is to warmly welcome many of our standards body partners to some of the work that's been happening on interoperability over the last couple of months as we prove out these specifications. So I'm going to share a few words of introduction. Nat Sakamura may be joining us partway through, and he may provide some comments more towards the end. But first, I will take us through a few of the key themes. So obviously, many of the standards bodies written on the page are very familiar to all of you. But as we mature these particular specifications on OID for VP and the DC API, these are a few of the key standards bodies who've been very engaged in the work over the last couple of years. And we value those liaison partners very highly to make sure that our specifications are as interoperable as we can make them to deliver on the needs of the implementers, including public and private entities alike. The interoperability of the specifications is a critical consideration in our specs as we go towards final. And so efforts like what you're going to see today of proving out the interoperability of the specs is absolutely pivotal before we take them to the final drafts. We also want to ensure that we have known security properties, and there's a body of work that we do at the OpenID Foundation with the University of Stuttgart to formally and mathematically analyze our protocols before we take them to final. And we've received the first two reports on the specification so far, and there's a little bit of additional diligence happening as we speak. So a very important due process that we continue to work through on the specs. Just thought I'd call out a couple of headlines that have come out in the news in the last couple of weeks. When we as the OpenID Foundation announced this event, it was concurrent with an announcement from Google on the Android support of digital credentials, which included the DC API and the OID for VP specifications that we'll be talking about and demonstrating today. We also saw MasterCard making a recent announcement on agent pay, and that body of work on agentic AI does overlap pretty closely with work on digital identity credentials. And then there was also a recent announcement from Amazon on their intent to consume identity credentials, whatever comes available in the US with their mobile driving licenses, as well as in Europe with the UDI wallet specifications. So Paul Grassi, formerly of NIST, shared some of their plans recently. So those are just a few snapshots, but we know there's a lot of momentum in the marketplace right now. In today's session, as per usual, the antitrust statement applies. So you're welcome to read this statement. We share this at the beginning of any of our work groups. Here, this is not a formal work group meeting, it's a presentation, but we do like to kind of reiterate that message. We are also welcoming any feedback from the community. Please do take note that feedback would be then considered as an IPR contribution for the purpose of today's discussion. So if you have not signed a contribution agreement to protect your feedback to the OpenID Foundation in more broadly, like in our working groups, then just do take note that any comments that you would make could be used by us as part of this know well statement and that coverage. So we could obviously make full benefit of any comments that you might have and share today. All right, so for the course of today's discussion, we are going to have a few headlines on the specifications themselves from Joseph Heenan. We'll then go into the scope and requirements for the interop, what were the different detailed specifications, and Joseph will cover that as well. Then we'll we'll go through the pairwise demonstration of different pairs that are participants, and we'll run through who are the participants in just a moment. We'll also then transition over to a NIST NCCOE project overview, and a member of that team, Bill Fisher, has kind of recorded his talk, so we have a 10-minute talk from him that we'll play. And then we'll go into some live demonstrations, a bit of background from Juliana Kafik and Oliver Terbu going through the work they've done to support the NIST NCCOE project. And we'll have a bit of live demonstration there, as well as the option to play some videos showing what it looks like from the wallet and the verifier side. And as we go through, we have 3 hours at our disposal, so I think we can welcome comments as we go through, either in the chat or speaking out. We are recording this demonstration so that others who are not able to video in for this particular session will have the benefit of looking at it later. So please do keep that in mind that this is a recorded session. But yes, welcome to take some comments as we go through, and then we'll certainly pause to take any other further discussion comments towards the end. We'll also be inviting any of our SDO experts who are familiar with the timelines of other SDO standards that are being released, such as the W3C DCAPI timeline, or the ISO Workgroup 10 timeline on the 18013-7 work that's also underway, to share any thoughts and observations on the plans for those groups. Okay. So by way of a very quick introduction to a few of our speakers that you may not see live in person, depends on who has their video cameras on. Joseph Heenan, sitting next to me, is the OIDF Standard Specialist and Certification Director. He's also DCP, or the Digital Credential Protocols Workgroup Co-Chair at the OpenID Foundation. He also is the CTO of Offleet. Juliana Kathik is the Principal Program Manager and Identity Standards Architect at Microsoft, and she'll be speaking later in the session around the work they've done to support the NIST NCCOE. And she's working closely with Oliver Terbu, editor of the DCP Workgroup Specs, and Technical and Standards Director for Europe and Matter. He will also be taking part in that part of the discussion. A huge thanks to all of our teams that are shown here with their logos. Really a wonderful spectrum of implementers from multiple different jurisdictions. We have 3 different continents represented by these teams. And there's also another anonymous participant that is a large corporate that's been taking part, but didn't have the permissions to show their logo at this particular moment. So again, huge thanks to the teams who've been working at great pace since February to bring their implementations to the demonstration you'll see today. The overall objectives of the demonstrations, there were 5. One, and first and foremost, was to prove out the underlying specifications themselves. Second was to provide those results and insights to you all, our SDO peers and valued partners, to conform the feedback into the OpenID Foundation test, which Joseph Heenan has developed for the OpenID for VP, and to brief our government partners on the progress, since many of those partners in the US, in Europe, and in Japan have been asking for our support for their roadmaps and their planned architectures and their ecosystems. So we wanted to provide a moment in time update to them on the progress through this demonstration. And last but not least is to support the global adoption, the scale adoption of these specifications. We believe through the work that's been done to date that we're very much on track for these standards to underpin online presentation of digital credentials. So it's a really exciting milestone, which my tone might not reflect. So we're pretty excited by what we've managed to get done and show you today. It's really, really kind of a pivotal moment. So great to be part of that. So I will now hand over to my colleague, Joseph Heenan, to share a few words on the standard and the specifications as we go. So we're on this slide. Hopefully you're with me now, Joseph.
Yep, thanks, Gail. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the specifications we've tested. So I presume probably everybody's familiar with the issue wallet verifier holder model at this point. So the specifications we've been mainly focused on today is the OpenID for verifiable presentation specification. So that's the one that deals with getting credentials from the wallet to the verifier or the relying party. We've also got Interop coming up with the OpenID for verifiable credential issuance specification, which deals with getting credentials from the issuer to the wallet. And across both of these, we're testing using the HYPE specification, so the high assurance interoperability profile. So that adds an interoperability and security layer on top of both of these specs. So we're focusing on testing that spec, so that's the one we expect to be used in the EU and other ecosystems, and with ISO as well. So why would you use these specs? They're credential format agnostic specs, so that means regardless of which credential formats you're using, you can use these specifications. So the main focus is on SDJOT, VC, and MDocs, but the specification is generic. It supports other credential formats as well, like W3 VCs and so on. The specifications are easy but powerful. They're kind of based on an underlying OAuth technologies. So they're familiar to a lot of web developers already, but they have a lot of powerful features. So that you can get the higher security, you can bind credentials to the holder of the wallet and present them securely. They have verified security as well. So what we've been doing with the University of Stuttgart is they've been creating mathematical models of our specifications and of the threat models that we want to prevent. And then they do some clever mathematics to prove that the specification actually prevents the threat models that it says it does. When they do this, they always find something, and we try and do these kinds of analysis before we take the specifications to final, so that we can include the feedback that they give us into the specs before they're final, so that when the specs actually go final, you have a nice verified specification that has very known security properties. And we like to say we're a very approachable and open community. Anybody is welcome to join our working group meetings. They're hosted on Zoom. They're regular. The schedule is on our working group pages. We just ask that if you're actually going to speak and contribute, that you do sign the IPR agreement that Gail mentioned first, which is it's free to sign. You don't have to be a member of OpenID Foundation to actually take part and contribute. It's very nice if you do join, but it is not at all compulsory to join to be able to contribute to the specifications. So expanding on moving these specs to final and what we've been testing. So OpenID for verifiable presentations, we did what's called the third implementers draft earlier at the start of this year. An implementers draft within the OpenID Foundation is a process that locks in a stable version of the spec. It's not a final version, but it's a stable version, and it has the IPR protections built in so that you have patent protection against any OpenID Foundation members. But what we've actually been using for the Interop testing is what we're calling draft 24, which is just one revision on from the implementers draft. And we decided to go with that revision just because it had some important changes to how MDLs are used in the specification. But we wanted to do testing and align people around. The most recent version of the specification is draft 28. That entered the public review process, I think, last week, week before actually. So the public review process is part of the final steps in the OpenID Foundation process before we move a specification to final. So for this case, it's a 60-day review period where the specs are published. We take in feedback, and yeah, it's the process of checking that yes, these specs are actually ready to get published as final and collecting any final feedback, final editorial changes to try and make them as best as we can. And at the end of that public review period, there'll then be a 7-day voting period, and if and when that vote passes, the specifications will then be published as final, which for verifiable presentation should happen around the end of June. And we're going to do Interop on that later revision of the spec as well. Towards the end of next month, we're going to do Interop on VP final.
Middle of June.
Yeah, middle of June. So if anybody has implementations that they're aligning around the final specification, please let us know so we can include you in that Interop testing. We also have the OpenID for verifiable credential issuance specification that reached its second implementers draft just at the end of last year. We're planning to do Interop testing on that at the end of this month. So again, if you have an implementation that's compliant with the second implementers draft, please let us know and we'll include you in that Interop. And as I mentioned, we also have the high assurance interoperability profile. That's got to its first implementers draft. That's the specification that we have been testing against. So that just takes the above two specifications and adds in some extra restrictions to really keep them interoperable, to restrict the choices you can make and to pick some of the higher security options. Do you want to talk about participants?
I can briefly. So what you'll observe is that we have 7 wallets participating in the interoperability demonstrations and 8 verifiers, plus there are then 4 DUCL queries. So we're going to have many pairs that we'll be able to look at as part of this discussion. So a big thanks to all of the teams again that are shown here. We will have speakers from each of those teams except I think two, one of whom it's a bit too early in the morning, but the rest of the group has signed on for joining us in this discussion. So thank you to all of you who will be voicing over some of your use cases as we go through. I do have a very quick trigger finger to pause the videos to be able to allow people to ask questions or go back and replay something, because some of them will move pretty quickly. We have 13 minutes of demonstrations compiled and 50 minutes to discuss them. So hopefully we'll get through as many of those use cases as we can. Also, as a note to the presenters, if there are any of your specific videos we might want to jump ahead to, we can work on that as well. Okay. You want to give an overview of the standards?
So again, talking a bit more about what we actually tested when we did the interoperability testing. So for OpenID for verifiable presentations, we use draft 24, as I mentioned. We've been focusing for this interop on the digital credentials API. So that's the browser API that has been developed in the W3C. Google already have it live in Chrome, and other browsers are participating in that. So we've been testing that version of the specification. OpenID for VP also supports fetching the credentials using a custom URL redirect model that's more like traditional OAuth. We've already done interop testing on that. So this interop test was focused on the newer digital credentials API. And that's a great specification. It has a lot of security and user experience benefits. We're glad to see that coming together and working well for everyone. For the credential format types, we've been testing both SDJOT and MDOC. So in SDJOT, we've been focused on a credential that's aligned with the ARF 1.8 PID, personal identification document. For MDOC, we've been using MDLs a lot. The specifications are generic and support more than just MDL. And as I mentioned, we've been focusing on HIAP because that adds the interoperability level. So that's what we want to use for interop testing. So HIAP does things like saying you have to use a particular client ID prefix, in this case X509 SAN DNS currently. It says you must use encrypted responses to the verifiers so credentials don't accidentally leak. It also has options to use signed requests if they're needed for the particular credential format. We've been focused on the DOCL query language. So those of you aware of the history will know that OpenID for verifiable presentations originally used the presentation exchange language from DIF. We got a lot of developer feedback that there were things that could be improved there. The culmination of that was we created the DOCL, the digital credentials query language, which is specific to OpenID for VP and part of the OpenID for VP specification. And actually, in the very latest versions of the spec, we've actually removed the presentation exchange option entirely. So now it's only the DOCL option that's presented. We've got a lot of good feedback about that change from developers. So it's good for interoperability to focus on a single query language. And for the purposes of the interop, we've focused on 4 specific queries. So we've been looking at an MDL querying for the holder's name. We've been doing the PID in SDJOT format, again, querying for the name. And then we've been doing some more complex queries, so requesting a PID or an MDL or a photo ID in MDOC, trying to get an age over 18 assertion for the user. And a similar query, but for the PID or an age credential or a specific OpenID credential we've invented, again in SDJOT, and trying to do the age over 18 claim. And also within this interop testing, we've also been doing conformance testing. So OpenID Foundation has a conformance and certification program. For all our specifications, we try to develop conformance tests before they go to final, because we find that increases the quality of the specifications, it increases the interoperability of the specs. we end up giving a lot of feedback, both from the people implementing the tests and the people that try running them, on what people find confusing or misleading or not fully specified in the specifications. So these are really useful for actually proving out the specs and making sure they are as good as they can be. The tests are all developed in the open. They're published on GitLab. They're open source. All the development happens in the open. We have a cloud-hosted version, which again is the version that people have been running for this interop testing. But you can also deploy it locally if you want. It's all open source. It can just be deployed in Docker. And NIST also have their own MDL test harness that we've been using as well. But all Interop participants have passed the OpenID for verifiable presentations conformance tests as part of this. The digital credentials API, we have tests for the wallets, and all the wallets have been through and passed those tests as kind of one of the criteria before we actually started doing the full Interop testing, was trying to make sure everybody had reached a bar of at least implementing the specifications in a way that at least the tests accept.
All right, now we're on to the video. So, or actually the results first, and then we'll talk about share the videos. So there were, from the 7 wallets, 5 of them had SD-JOT functionality, and the other 7 all had MDOT functionality. For the 8 verifiers, obviously some of the transactions won't go through if they didn't support the SD-JOT on the wallet side. And then there were 4 different duffel queries, which Joseph just took us through. So that was the baseline. Clearly, other duffel queries can be enabled, but these are the 4 that the implementer is built towards. That meant there were a total of 224 manual pairs. Out of that group, there are about 35 pairs that we didn't have the results for when I wrote this up last night. But there were a few pairs with no results, given that they had no build yet. So there were those that we believe had the functionality but didn't test, and then those that did not have the functionality at all because they hadn't built to that particular configuration, like they didn't have SD-JOT. That meant that there were 153 potential pairs that were built out that did have results, and of those 153 pairs, 90% passed. And 9.8% had resolvable errors, and to our knowledge, there were no unknown errors that were remaining. So this was kind of self-declared through the manual reporting that the teams have done, many of whom are on the call at the moment. So what we'll be demonstrating in the videos is many of these that passed. I'm not sure if I have any that were in the unresolvable category. I don't think so, because I think in most cases that was perceived to be an opportunity to go back and close a gap. So for example, one of the things that I heard reported from the teams was build out to the latest version of the DC API, as opposed to the prior version, and everybody else was using the prior version. So one particular implementer had a gap there. And that was an example, but we can certainly quiz the teams, and they'll share their testimonials as part of this discussion. So overall, again, big win to see quite a strong pass rate. One wouldn't necessarily expect 100% pass rates at this stage, but a very good indication that the underlying specs are on track, as mentioned earlier. Okay, so now this is what I've been worried about since a week ago when we decided we do videos, because your editor for this is myself. So I'm going to do my best. We have this is the order of you may not be able to see that very clearly, but we're going to go through about 15 of the pairs and then end with the OIDF test suite. So I think I've got most of the pairs covered through different configurations, starting with the Animo verifiers and the Android wallets, then going into the Stickerai verifiers with the Android Credman wallet. Then we'll go through Animo verifiers with Spruce wallet, Panasonic verifier with the Open Wallet Foundation wallet, and then a few other verifiers like Matter verifier, Android verifier with the Open Foundation wallet. So we will have a pretty decent spectrum. This is not 100% of all of the pairs that were reported and sent through, but it's a pretty decent cross-section of them. I'm now looking for my file. Where's my recording? There we go. Put that on full screen, go back to the beginning. All right, you'll see my crazy Interop demo screen. And then I'm going to ask if I pause here. So, got Timo, you'll be able to speak to this as well as Dirk is going to do his best, attempting to represent his team, or I will help speak for him as we go through the first one. In this particular configuration, they're all on-device queries. It will go through the SD-JOT scenarios and then the MDoc. It's going to be looking for names only, and then it will do some of the examples of age over 18. And as I said, Timo and Dirk, I'm going to attempt to be trigger happy on the pausing so that we can try and follow what's going on. There is no voice recording on the video, so that's why we're trying to do our best to voice it over for you live. Okay, here we go.
Okay, yeah, so this is the CM wallet from the Android team with our Funke verifier. And it's going to run through a few queries here. Mainly for the DACO queries we specified as part of the Interop testing. Yeah, I think you can press play. Yeah, and so this is all following the specifications that we defined in Hype. And this time it will request a bit first. Yeah, and in the CM wallet, you just have a very simple biometric check. So you get like a check mark. It's up to the wallet to decide how you present that screen and to share.
Later we'll see some PIN codes and stuff, right? But in this one, it's just the biometric.
Exactly. In our wallet, we use a PIN.
And then we see the names came through here, John and Smith.
Yeah, just the debug view.
Okay.
And then we'll run through a few other queries here. They're very similar, but they request different attributes from the different DACO queries. So either a PID in STJOT format or a PID in MBOK format. We also have the mobile driver's license in MBOK format, and we have the photo ID in there as well. Just to see like does it work with different credential types. So yeah, here we request like the ARF 1.8 PID in STJOT format.
Forget the crazy video there. That's the first age over 18 query. I think option 9 for those that were.
Yeah, so now we'll just request the age over 18. And as you can see in the bottom screen, there's like multiple options they can choose from because there's this query actually asks for either age over 18 from a photo ID, from a mobile driver's license, or from the PID. So yeah, just to show that like you can, as a verifier, have options in what you request and the wallet can choose if they have multiple.
There we go. New age over 18. This one had multiple choices again.
Yeah, so this is the STJOT. The last one was the MLOG variant. This is now asking either of these three in STJOT format, and then again you can choose.
So was that all recorded in real time, Timo, or was it sped up?
I don't know. This one was created by the Android team. They recorded it, so
not sure.
Looks like real time.
Yeah.
So pretty fast because of the biometrics.
Yeah,
right?
no, it's
so
very
there wasn't
fast,
any,
especially with the biometrics check. It's
so no known latencies, like big pauses or anything like that to decrypt it.
No, I don't think so. No.
Any comments to add on your side, sir?
Seems to work.
Okay, good. So the next pair here is essentially the same set of queries, right? But we're cross-device.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I think the cool thing about cross-device is that this is implemented on Android, and so as a verifier, you don't have to support anything to support the cross-device flow because it's handled between the Chrome browser and the Android device. But generally, for the verifier, it works the same. It's just that if you're on a laptop, you can also present it from your phone still, where most of your credentials will be. It does take a bit more steps because you first need to connect your phone with your Chrome browser, and then you get the same pop-up, and you can choose to share it, and then you get the result in the browser. And for the rest, these are the same queries and the same results.
That's the MDoc with the ISO 18013-5 and the code.
Yeah.
Go back and you're going to pick some more. SD version.
Yeah, same query but for SD. And currently Android devices are still updating a bit to get this cross-device flow working. On my Samsung device it doesn't work yet, but I heard from the Chrome and the Android teams they're working with all the device manufacturers to get this working on all devices natively.
We got the age over 18. Choosing between the different credential types again. And then the last one on cross device.
Also the age over 18 with SD.
Okay, pausing there. Any other comments from Timo or Dirk?
So neither the verifier nor the wallet had to do anything special with the cross device.
No, that's implemented on the Chrome and Android site to do that cross device. Yeah, and it also works across, like you can have Chrome on your MacBook laptop and your Android phone, and that also works.
Any other comments on what was easy versus hard? I know we'll do a little bit more of a kind of run through on a testimonial, but while we're here, why don't we pause and see if there were any other comments on your experience as a verifier going through that part of the build.
I think what was easy is that the spec has already gone through a lot of cycles, so I think Interop was relatively easy to get. I think also because we used Duckle, which made it a lot simpler. And I think all the participants here were very highly skilled in all the specifications, which makes Interop debugging a lot easier. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
I was told that Duckle made it much easier than in the previous revision.
The
Where we
presentation
had some
exchange.
PE stuff.
Yeah, we also know because no one implemented the full PE specification, so you always had some Interop issues there.
Very good. All right, you're liberated for a few minutes until you come back to the wallet side. Any other? So we'll switch gears to the Bundesdruckerei verifier and the Android Credman wallet. So Dirk is still on the hook for all of his expertise on this. And over to you.
It's the most sophisticated spelling of Bundesdruckerei. We're not building trucks.
Oh, sorry. Pardon me. I knew there was going to be errors in that. Okay, so this is on-device queries, NDoc, SDJOT names, then age over 18. You're going to go through it all, I think, as well, right?
Yes. So yeah, I'm Micha from Bundesdruckerei. We also implemented a verifier for both SDJOT and NDoc, and all the 4 scenarios which were defined for the interop. We have also the options to sign the authorization request for the verifier's authenticity check and to encrypt the response back. So it's enabled by default, and yeah, of course, you can just run it.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it's the same. So yeah, as Timo already mentioned, it's really cool for the verifier side that for you, it doesn't matter if it's cross-device or same device flow, it's the same. And yeah, so it was really fun.
Really
to implement it quick. So yeah, we had a lot of code already from last interop. So the main steps we had to do was basically to integrate the C API, and this is really straightforward, I think. And yeah, it just worked. So yeah, there you see the other scenarios.
This is SDJOT now.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I think the DC API lays a really good foundation for multi-wallet, multi-device scenarios to be secure and have a good user experience. But I think in some other videos we also see where the user has some more credentials as option and also credentials from different wallets you can choose from. So yeah, was really a critical part that was missed before, and I think that's a really important good step.
So more age options, age over 18. And this time you've got some code.
Yeah, or SD-Jot debug output a little bit more verbose than for the NDocs.
Okay, so any other comments, or should we move on to the cross-device queries? Good.
Yeah, just everything get forward. Yeah, maybe to talk a little bit about the cross-device flow, because I'm not sure if everyone is familiar. So this is not just a QR code which includes the authorization request as it was before, I think. And this could be target of an attack, because the QR code can be scanned and from everywhere and can be copied. Here, if you scan this QR code, there is a check with Bluetooth if both the devices, so notebook and smartphone, are side by side. And that's really a critical part for security, shoulder surfing, and so on. And the origin of the page, so where the QR code is generated, is also part of the check, what was also very difficult before, because the QR code is basically just an image, and if you scan the image, you cannot really make sure where the image was generated in which page. So, and this is really fixed with this DC API, and yeah, just great, I think.
Going through the scenarios.
Yeah.
We got all 4 of them. Continue going through the different SD-JOT and MDoc permutations for names, and then age over 18 on cross-device. The last name one, I think. The last one, all signed and encrypted. Okay. Any last comments, Misha? All good?
All good.
Any questions either in the chat or from those on the line for our first couple of presenters? So we've gone through four pair examples that Tima and Misha took you through. Any questions or comments from the group? Not seeing anything in the chat yet. So as we go through, feel free to add any questions in. I think we might have some people that are unmuted and can speak openly, and I'm not sure about everybody. So for this part, Stephanie, I think it's fine to unmoderate everybody in case there's any questions or comments from the group. Okay, moving on to the next pair, we'll have, again, the Mr. Prior verifier, and this time with the Spruce wallet. And I don't think we have anybody dialed in from the Spruce wallet team because of the early hour.
Yeah, so from the verifier side, it's just the same. So,
The excitement can be lost in the mendacity of it working.
the,
Pause.
yeah, just go forward, but I can talk over. So the Spruce wallet decided to have the option I saw on the video to really disclose the age or not. So this is maybe something we didn't see before from the other wallets. So as Timo already said, so the wallet can decide how to present the offer to the user. So yeah. So after scanning the QR code, this what you see right now comes from the system, from the credentials managers. This is also something which comes from the system. This screen is from the wallet. So the last screen, in the case of the CM wallet, they just decided to have this biometric check there. But I think the Animal wallet, for example, will show some more details. So yeah, there are many options.
Shall we keep going? Back over to you for the next wallet, Timo.
Yeah, so this is again our verifier, but this time with the Spruce wallet. So it's the same configurations and the same double queries, but different implementations. So currently it's also, you can configure in Chrome, like whether you have an extra pop-up before sharing data. I don't know what will be the default. That you can currently configure that.
Okay, and then here we have the Panasonic verifier, and I think we have the Panasonic team on the line. Trung, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. Okay, so if you want to share any comments as we're playing this this one, please feel free to chime in and voice over.
Yes.
Your on-device example with the Open Wallet Foundation wallet.
Yes. You know, our verifier already support both MDoc and PID, both at the job and MDoc. You see here. Our request support on, yes.
It went so fast.
It's too fast, yeah.
Again.
Yeah, hi, this is David from Google. Yeah, I think I was the one recording this video, and just wanted to note the flash that you see after the consent dialogue and before it says the information was shared was the biometric prompt. So if you roll the video, now the operating system is drawing the credential selector. The user presses continue. That invokes the multipass wallet. And here's the consent prompt. This is drawn by the wallet. The user then presses share. And then what you don't see in the video because of technical limitations is the biometric face authentication prompt. Now the information is shared, sent back to the website, just like all the other videos. And you can see the result here.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Trung. Any other comments from either of you on that very speedy presentation?
Yes. Our verifier has some updates in UI. Can you try again if you want to test with us? Yeah.
So to do it, so for David to run the wallet test again? Or, because I think this one, I only have that one video at the moment. I might have to find another video. to show again. I'm gonna go on to the next one, a matter verifier. All right, I'll do it the one last time.
Yeah, and this is going to be a very similar video, I think.
This is the exact same one, this one. So, because I only have the one video, I think, in here for the Panasonic verifier at the moment. But then this one's going to skip over to the matter verifier. And so unless there's any questions or further comments from David or Trung on the last one, we will move on to Oliver Terbu, who's on for the matter verifier. Okay, Oliver, are you there?
Yeah, so if there are no further questions on the previous demo, I can take over from here. Yeah, so this is the demo between a meta verifier, the demo verifier we have built for the Interop event, and the OpenID Open Wallet Foundation wallet that David is leading. So it's very similar. So we're using the Google Multipass wallet with our verifier. So if you continue the video, you will see a very similar experience as before. So this is our verifier. We support multiple protocols. So in this case, we just use OpenID for IP plain. With Duckle, we're requesting a PID as the short. And then we're using the Multipass wallet that has a EU PID. And then, yeah, if you continue, you can see again the view that is rendered from the wallet. We click share. And then I assume we will have the same experience, the black screen, which is supposed to show the biometric check. But there are some technical limitations that cannot, so we can't see that. And yeah, and that's the result. All worked. The credential was verified, and that's basically it.
Perfect. See if we have another one that. Aha. Okay. So do you want me to play that again, Oliver, or shall I keep going?
I think you can keep going because I think it was very similar to previous demos anyways.
Sounds good. So we'll have a large corporate verifier. I don't know whether they'll speak up during this particular session, so I might speak for them. And then on the Animo side this time, you're a wallet. So Timo will speak with that hat on for this round, showing SDJOT, I believe. Okay, so this is cross-device, triggering the DC API, scanning, sharing there. We have the ARF PID age over 18 for this use case.
Yeah, and so as you can see here, we now have a PIN in our wallet. We also support biometrics, but because our wallet, we implemented like the German architecture concept where we use a remote secure element where you authorize using a PIN instead of biometrics. And so, yeah, depending on which credential will be shared or how we configure it, you can enter a PIN as well to authorize the credential sharing.
Okay, and then you manually are getting the results when you do exchange results.
Yeah. Okay.
There we go. It should say age over 18 true. I see. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, true correctly. All right. All right. Now for this one, we have the Android verifier, which was, I think, the digital credentials.dev, something like that, with the Open Wallet Foundation wallet. This is going to be on device queries, SD.in MDoc, age over 18. So David and Dirk, feel free to chime in as you see fit. This is a very user-centric page.
So yeah, it's very similar to a lot of the other videos, which I think is a good thing, that the experience is similar no matter what verifier wallet people are using. That's a good feature of the standard.
Yeah, agreed. So here we have the EU PID multi-pass wallet, age over 18. Continue. And then requesting data. Okay. Facial biometric, or whatever the biometric is. And then the results came back true.
Indeed.
Sorry, was that a comment, David?
No, I was just saying indeed.
Okay. All right. So then
How does the warning down there, the verifier is not on a trusted list, how does that get into the screen?
Yes, that's a great question. So the idea is, if we can go back to the consent prompt. So a feature of the standard that we use is that we sign the requests. So when the wallet receives the request, it is signed, but the wallet doesn't have the CA for the PKI used to sign it built in, and that's what the warning is supposed to say in the consent dialog.
Part of the UI that the wallet drew. Oh, that's already the UI that the wallet is drawing. Okay, that looked to me the generic, and very similar to the generic overlay that's being done from the Android Credential Manager.
Yeah, so Android Credential Manager, the operating system will draw the first dialog that you see in this video, and then that's drawn by the operating system. When the user actually selects a credential, even if there's only one, it's handed over to the wallet application, and the dialogues look very much the same, right? It's follow the same design pattern of bottom sheets. That can be a little confusing to the user that they look like that they look the same.
And yeah, okay, continue.
So this is in the browser. This is in the operating system. This one share info.
All right, and that looks very similar to the next screen where it's actually the wallet.
Indeed, yeah.
So you chose to do kind of the downgrade route, right? Where if the signature of the request cannot be verified, the wallet still allows the flow to continue, but wants the user.
So, well, the signature is indeed verified, but the key that the signature was made with is not in a trust list, which is what the wording is in the dialog in the little red box. That wording might be improved in the future. A wallet could decide not to actually service this request if they don't know who's asking. Yeah, this one, the verifier requesting this data, is not in a trust list. Make sure you're comfortable sharing this data with them. So there might be room for improving how to convey to the user that this website with the URL, the request is correct, but we just don't know who they are, right? On the internet, no one knows your dog. TLS only gives you confidentiality. It doesn't actually give you an assurance of who it is. So any wallet will have this problem if they get a request from a website they don't know.
it's a helpful clarification. Thank you.
Yeah, and this is something we should explain to users without them having to know about TLS, trustless, or anything. So there's some room for improvement in doing that in any wallet, I think.
Great. Okay. So David is still on the hook. We're going to do the on-device permutation of this with the Mr. Fry verifier. So we'll keep trundling along.
Yeah, and you can just let the video play. I think it looks a lot like all the other videos. So yeah, we select the request in the verifier. We start the transaction, open the wallet. That gives us the credman selector. And we can continue to the wallet app. The dialog looks exactly like the previous one. We press share, the biometric prompt comes up, which isn't shown here. And the results should be shared. I don't know why there's a pause here. But the wallet then says the information was shared, goes back to the website. The website shows it.
Okay.
And the next video should be a lot like the
Yeah,
previous one, except it's another verifier.
Exactly. It's you and you this time on both sides of the transaction.
Indeed,
the
yeah.
Open Wallet Foundation verifier and Open Wallet Foundation wallet. EU PID, FC JOT, age over 18. So I'll let it play.
Yeah, and this is actually a bug in the wallet because my wallet actually has its own verifier in the trust list. So it should have been a logo, which would have been a lot nicer than just the scary text. I can actually show it to you what it looks like on the video. Let me just turn on video.
You want me to pause what I'm playing and you want to share from your side?
But it's hard to see.
Yeah, you can pause it a little bit. Let me just find the video
There you are.
to my background.
It's very pretty,
You have to turn off the blur.
Yeah, sorry. Settings, video. Sorry, this is more complicated.
We need comedy breaks like this. This is good.
Yeah, I know. Blow my background. Okay. So if you look at the consent prompt right here, see how it says Open Wallet Foundation Multipass Test App request this info, and there's a nice little logo.
Utopia.
Yeah, and actually it's the brewery of Utopia, actually. I made this logo myself, using Gemini, of course. And there's no scary warning here. So
okay, no scary warning. Good.
So yeah, so what you saw there was just a small bug in the application, which is now fixed, which demonstrates this is like a leading breaking edge development.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed it is.
Okay.
All right, great. I will keep playing then, going through the next set of on-device permutations. Nope, that was quick. I'm gonna guess we don't need to go back because it's gonna, that was all pretty similar to what we just saw, and then we saw the prettier version. Okay, so let's do this next one where Timo will consult with Timo about both his verifier and his wallets across device, MDoc age over 18.
Yeah, so this one doesn't count as much for Interop because it's our own verifier with our own wallet, but yeah, it still works. Yeah, the same as the other queries we did with the last Interop test.
And then now this will be your wallet, Timo, with the test suite. And I think this is the last pair that we're going to go through. So I'm going to pause here. You want to describe what's going on this?
Yeah, so this is the cloud-hosted version of the OpenID Foundation test suite you can see on the screen. So we're not starting right at the start of the process. We've already selected a set of tests to run, put in the configuration, like the various keys and things that are required, and then selected an actual test to run. This particular test that's being run here is the Happy Flow test. And the test has started running, and what's about to happen now is that I presume it was Timo that recorded this, is pressing the proceed with test button. So again, we've launched the browser API here. It's been scanned with the wallet. You're giving permission to share the credential with the conformance suite.
Utopia governments with the architectural reference framework.
Second, and then you can see the test has now moved to finished, and it's passed, which is great. And if you scroll down, you can see some of the details of the return credential and so on.
Except I can't.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I had a couple of other in here for good measure. So Animo Verifier, Open Wallet Foundation Wallet, I'll let these play because we have enough time.
I think the gist of it is that we had a lot of wallets working with a lot of verifiers, which is cool to see.
Exactly. Scary warning. Timo is a stranger.
Sorry, Timo.
Flipping rules. Digitalcredentials.dev site. Back to the matter verifier. Oliver, this time it's the address. I think this is the overachieving because this wasn't in a set of 4 double queries.
No, I think this one is requesting also specific postal code to be shared.
Exactly. So there's the postal code that came through.
Yeah, so this is a feature which is called value matching in Ducktail. And I think also something that I want to comment on this flow is that, so this was cross-device, and that's a very nice thing about the DC API because you get cross-device for free if you have same device already, because it uses the same APIs and so on.
I'll just run it again. Again, pin. And postcode back. Very good. All right, so this, I think we're then going to transition over to the NIST demonstrations. So an option here, we could play a couple of the demonstrations that the wallets had recorded, Juliana, before we go into the full description, just because I have them on ready to go here. Would that be useful, do you think, just to do a couple of them, and then we'll kind of come back and explain what the NIST verifier is doing?
Yeah, we're gonna do it in reverse order. They won't know what they've seen, but sure. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
exactly. Well, they've seen some of it before. So here we've got the Spruce wallet, selecting multi-options in the verifier. So this part of it looks the same, I think is kind of the key point, right? You know, it's for the wallets, it's the same interaction. age over 18 is shared. Approved. And the results have come through. And at the bottom of the screen, it'll show age over 18 is true. And this would be the same thing with the 1Password wallet, which we haven't seen the 1Password implementation yet. So good to have them come through here. We chose to do the do you trust it? Sharing age over 18. And again, it's decoding the token, the claims, and then it'll show age over 18 at the bottom.
Yeah.
We haven't seen a Skitalis wallet yet, so we'll let that one run as well. I do know we have Marina on the line.
Hi, Gail. I'm here.
Hi there.
Yeah, here we test Skitalis wallet with NCCO architecture verifier. We select for signed request and encrypted response with MDL MDoc name only. We scanned the QR code as it is a cross device scenario. We selected the matched credential. We unlocked the Skitalis wallet, and here we can see the results, the family name and given name of the MDL MDoc document.
Very quick run. And this would be the same.
And here, yes, we changed the DACL query. It requests for MDL or PID or photo ID that has age over 18 value true. We found a PID that matches the request, and we unlocked the Skitalis wallet and sent back the response to the verifier. Here we can see the results with the age over 18 value that is true.
I'm going to pause there. We can come back and show more of those later if we've got time. But what I'll do is return to the main presentation, and we have I think we'll do the video first with our friends from NIST who are here in spirit, but in video for today's conversation. So our talk will be from Bill Fisher from the NIST NCCOE team, lead engineer there, and he will speak for himself. I'll get him on full screen. Is that playing through?
No, it was.
Right. Pause there. All right, can the people on the video, sorry, on the phone, hear when Bill was talking, or was it echoing?
It was
Like
echoing.
I think generally if you share tab instead of share screen, then it takes over the sound of the
share what, Timo?
at least with Google Meet. If you share a specific tab, I don't know if that's possible with Zoom in the browser or. And if you play a video, it will just send
I
the
know what I'll
video
do.
sound to.
I think I'm gonna go back to my. Let me see if I can play it from here instead. Okay.
Colorado, at the time it was
Still echoing.
I think once the support office presentation phase, it kind of gives an overview of.
Yeah, I think I was suggesting if you share the hub, maybe.
Okay, stop sharing.
Accelerate the adoption of standards for best practices in mobile driver licenses and also further likely verifiable digital credential ecosystem. So this quick presentation will kind of give you some context of the project, what we are doing, how we operate, and then establish some context for architecture that we designed.
That's the same as you were doing.
Should we try and mute these mics here? We are the ones going out and writing the standards, but rather we're trying to help develop standards and getting standards best practices adopted by working with communities that have cybersecurity challenges and bringing together. Of standards and best practices. Driver's license project here, we have done just that. We thought mobile driver's license to operate.
Now it's gonna come.
One second, we're trying to figure it out. Sorry.
Teams.
What you can do is if you do share screen, you can do.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining me today. My name is Bill Fisher. I'm one of the security engineers at the NIST National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. I'm based in Boulder, Colorado, and at the time where this talk was scheduled to happen, it's about 2 in the morning for me, so I apologize. I wasn't able to make it in person, but I did want to record off this presentation for you and kind of give an overview of the work we've done underneath our mobile driver's license project, which is geared towards helping to accelerate the adoption of standards and best practices for mobile driver's licenses and also for the larger verifiable digital credential ecosystem. So this quick presentation will kind of give you some context for the project, what we are doing, how we operate, and then establish some context for our architecture that we've designed, which you will see in action here today. So after this presentation, you'll receive part 2 from my colleagues Juliana Kothick at Microsoft and Oliver Terbu at Matter, who will be demonstrating this architecture in action. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, we are in what's called the Applied Cybersecurity Division at NIST. The applied element in that name means that we aren't the ones going out and writing the standards, but rather we're trying to help advance the standards and getting standards and best practices adopted by working with communities that have cybersecurity business challenges and bringing together commercially available technology, standards and best practices, regulatory bodies, government agencies, any number of players in an ecosystem to try to move that ecosystem forward, create more cyber secure systems, and to advance the adoption of standards and best practices. So for the mobile driver's license project here, we have done just that. We thought mobile driver's licenses were a very interesting place for the NCC to operate because, one, here in the US, we saw states beginning to roll them out and citizens beginning to use them and have those credentials provisioned to their wallets. And then beyond the US, we saw a larger ecosystem with what's happening in the EU and the EUDI wallets and the architecture reference framework for how the future of this technology was going to shape up. And so we wanted to get into this space and show how some of these standards and best practices could be applied and implemented, and also help to drive their maturation forward. And so for the mobile driver's license space, the first use case we decided to take on was actually around financial institutions and financial services. So how could mobile driver's licenses be used as identity evidence that could be provided to financial institutions when someone wants to open a financial account that could meet the SIP KYC requirements that financial institutions have? So that's the Customer Identification Program and Know Your Customer requirements. And so in order to operationalize on that use case, we needed to go out and work with a large swath of industry, to include the OpenID Foundation, who's hosting this event today. And so I just wanted to quickly show some of the stakeholders that we've been working with on this project. So we have several states that are working with us as issuers, providing us actual credentials into digital wallets. We have several wallet providers that are working with us, as well as Matter, who I already mentioned as the verifier in this project. One big thing that we have a focus on for this project is that the implementation for mobile driver's license and other verifiable digital credentials does not end at the verifier, right? So we typically talk a lot about this wallet and or holder, the issuer, and the verifier as sort of this three-legged stool or triangle that is the pillar of this ecosystem. But a lot of work is required even after we get through the interoperability and the credential being presented to take the claims that come from that credential and integrate them into business process and procedure on the relying party side. To represent that sort of IDMS system that a relying party would have, we're working with Microsoft, and then for the authentication piece, we have Yubico. And then we are working with several large financial institutions in the US to gather requirements, to understand what that piece is going to be like. How do we get the information out of the credential into the financial systems and into financial system business process, such that it's actual real business value? So you can see we're working with, I believe, 5 of the 10 largest banks just in the US currently. We're only working with mobile driver's licenses and US states and US companies currently, but we would like to expand to an international use case here sometime in the future. And then we also have several organizations that are helping us out with trust and standards, to include AMVA, the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators, who is acting as sort of that digital trust service between issuers and the verifiers, to be able to get those public keys out to verifiers so these credentials can be used. You know, I've talked about standards a lot already in this presentation, and standards are the center of what we're trying to do here. So for those of you who are interested, we have several different standards that we have implemented so far in our architecture across several different standards bodies. I would assume for this audience, most of these are going to be familiar to you. But specifically, we've implemented 18013-5 and 7 in our architecture. So the MDoc specification for the data format, credential format, excuse me, inside of -5, and then the remote presentation that is specified in -7. For that presentation, we are using OpenID for VP version 24 currently. We will update that as that specification evolves. We're using things like OpenID Connect and OAuth 2.0 to handle the tokens and the interoperations between and the interconnections between some of these backend components. We are, of course, using the W3C Digital Credentials API, which comes with the CTAP baked in, right? So for those cross-device flows, we want to make sure that we are phishing resistant and have a secure connection going between the wallet and the relying party server. And so we're using that with CTAP underneath. And then one of the things we're demonstrating as part of our project is not just the presentation of the MDL, but then also the issuance of a passkey afterwards, right? So we like the idea for our project that MDLs are great for identity verification, identity proofing. They come with all these cryptographically verifiable attributes. But we don't want users presenting those attributes every single time they are authenticating. So we see these technologies riding alongside each other very well, where MDLs and verifiable digital credentials are great for identity verification, and then using something like passkeys, which are phishing resistant and pseudonymous, they don't come with all those identifying attributes for authentication, is a really powerful model. So I won't go through this entire chart here. Obviously, anytime you see an architecture diagram, it's a little bit of an eye chart. But this diagram here sort of outlines some of the basic components that we have in our architecture that we're building out now. What you're going to see here in a moment from my colleagues Juliana and Oliver is does not include the quote-unquote bank of NCCOE we're developing. So if you see this at the bottom here, the financial institution banking system, we are currently building out our own fictitious bank using open source software called Finerac. And that's going to be something that we'll demonstrate as part of our project later. But what you are seeing right now, or what you will see in a second from this architecture, is that identity management system you see right above that, interacting with the wallet providers and the verifier. And so you will see the ability to present several credential types across OpenID for verifiable presentation, and the ability for our IDMS to accept those credentials, extract those claims, and then eventually, as I said, we will be demonstrating how those claims can be input into a financial system and used for business value. So that's just a quick overview. If you're interested in the project and what we've been doing and keeping up to date on things, I put a quick QR code here for where we've been releasing a lot of our public resources to include this architecture. We actually have 2 listed on the website because there's a cross-device and a same-device flow. We have listed our build criteria. We have video wireframes for how this will eventually look with the Bank of the NCCOE, and lots of other resources that we're putting out there. So I would encourage everybody to check that out. If anybody has any questions, they can reach out directly to us on our website. Everything on that website is open for public comments. And with that, I would like to turn things over to my colleagues, Juliana and Oliver, to handle the actual demonstration piece.
To them, let me go back to sharing.
No, I've muted her here, so you don't need to. You don't need sound.
Okay.
One update: we got the breakfast now available outside.
Yeah.
So
Breakfast.
yeah, if you want to make a small pause in the first session, maybe you could. Option now. Oh, there's any other natural point in the further.
Sorry, I'm just
Agenda?
trying to progress the page. Bear with me while I figure out how to go forward page. It's like it's frozen. Okay, I think I got it.
Do you want to do 5-minute break?
I think we could do a 5-minute break. How does that sound? All right, 5-minute break, everybody. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, we are reassembling. I see Juliana and Oliver are on standby here. So they're going to take us through the next portion of the agenda, which we just heard Bill Fisher introduce, and they're going to talk about how it's all working. So who will pick up first? Oliver and Juliana? Oliver. Okay, Oliver, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, I want to thank the entire NCCOE team for this excellent project. It was a great experience to collaborate with financial firms, understand their requirements, and help deploy this technology in the NCCOE environment. So at Meta, we are pioneers and experts in digital credentials. We actively contribute to and help lead standards development across key SDOs, including OpenID Foundation, ISO, IETF, and W3C. So the standards that we are demonstrating today are not only ones we help shape, but also the ones that we use in our enterprise-grade products and platforms to build secure and interoperable verifiers, issuers, and wallets for digital credentials. So I guess next slide, please, and probably handing over to Juliana.
Oliver. So I'm Juliana Kapik. I am the lead for the NIST NCCOE project within Microsoft. We also are heavily invested in standards development through ISO, through the OpenID Foundation, W3C, and so on, and are really excited about the NCCOE's project because it enables us to step back and use our core competencies as an IAM platform to be able to support multiple wallets. So this, what we've architected for the NCCOE is wallet independent. It's based on standards that are developed external to Microsoft in collaboration in the community, which is a really powerful asset. And those standards that are being consumed here by the IAM platform are for protocols, profiles, and data sets, as well as the APIs. I think we've heard the word DC API a number of times here. So those two components, the wallet and the protocols, profiles, and data sets, allow us to do on the Interop platform side is to consume the credentials that are being presented by those wallets through the verifier, which is Matters verifier, which we've integrated into our IAM platform. What that allows us to do is securely extract the claims. So what I think Bill mentioned, the NCCOE project does not end at the verifier. It flows the claims extraction in a secure environment through to asynchronous account provisioning processes for the bank of NCCOE to meet KYC CIP requirements of the bank. So this is a true relying party perspective here and allows us using our Microsoft Azure platform to literally use those claims asynchronously at scale and have them consumed in the secure environment by our financial institution. Next slide. So what have we tested in this context so far? We've had 10 different wallets on one Matter verifier, multiple browsers, multiple operating systems, digital credentials API, OpenID for VP version 24, 2 different credential types for SDJOT and MDOC, 4 duckle queries, 4 data sets, MDOC supporting both MDL and PID in the European context, and we are able to support multi-threaded testing. So that means real-world RP learnings are coming from this from the platform side. Slide. So here's an example here. We started this process for remote testing in the ISO MDL test event in Utrecht, the Netherlands. It was our first try at it. It was an interesting exercise, but what it allowed us to do, and what you're seeing here on the screen, is the different protocols as defined by ISO 18013-7 for mobile driver's license remote presentation. So Annex C, OpenID for VP, and a custom URI model. And we had no filters. We just allowed every wallet to test any of the protocols. And we were able to really quickly see the verifier response successes and the overall success rate for each of the protocols within the standard. Why this is a really important snapshot and a really important lens is that event was on March 1st of 2025. So since that time, and with this architecture, we have supported and tried to support the standards advancement, particularly with respect to OpenID for VP, versioning all the way from this event, which was OpenID for VP version 24 in its early days, through to, and if you go to the next screen, last week, so essentially 1 or 2 months, we see the advancements of OpenID for VP through to the Duckle queries and a substantive increase in the success rates in that 2-month period of time. So if I step back and look at that overall, what we're seeing is multiple parties, multiple wallets, the verifiers able to use and rely on the standard itself from OpenID for VP and to be able to implement at a much higher success rate, completely independent of our platform. So that's an incredible perspective for relying parties that we're starting to see the stabilization of the standard, the relative consistency on the implementation across the different parties, and we're able to discern the success rates at a fairly high rate. And give that feedback back to the community, all parties within the community, so that they can continue to work towards stabilization and adoption with very little variance on the presentation of these protocols, which is what the enterprise relying party will require moving forward.
What are you referring to by the URI protocol?
So the URI is a custom URI that OpenID, a previous version of OpenID for VP, relied upon in the ISO MPL 18013-7. So it's not using the DC API, it's a custom URI for presentation.
The OpenID for VP colon URI?
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, so what we're doing.
Where the previous line was the DC API using OpenID for VP profile?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
And now you're gonna take over the presentation?
Yeah, so what we're gonna do, I've got Oliver on the screen here. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna show you first, if you're cool, Gail, I'm gonna share my screen.
Go ahead.
And show a little bit under the hood here on what we see. My screen?
Yep, come up.
Ah, there we go. Okay, so first I'm gonna give you a bird's eye view before we run the, oh God, too many things open. A bird's eye view of what we saw, that snapshot of the results of, just so you get some clarity at what we see from a fidelity perspective. So we see our wallets. So this is from the event on April 30th, just not too long ago. We see our wallet, we see the protocol and profile that they're presenting, and the data set, and what the result of whether it's passed or not. And the reason I'm showing you this is you can see there's considerable number of wallets who've been testing across the multiple data sets and profiles. And we're starting to see some pretty strong success rates here. So this is a very powerful view for us as Microsoft, looking at it from the IAM platform perspective to understand if the standards are working well enough for all these different wallets to present consistently through them.
So Julianne, do you want to talk about the difference in the results? Like what I had was a success rate, if that pair had gotten to a success, yes or no, whereas yours is a different data point, right?
That's correct. So The difference between what Gail presents as success or fail and what we're presenting is, so I'll give you an example. In this particular event, if a wallet presented and had an error of some sort in its presentment, and we will record it as an attempt and a success or a fail. If it failed, the wallet during the interop event, so on 4/30, April 30th, was given the opportunity to resolve their challenge and represent the transaction a subsequent time. And if they achieved a pass rate, we record that, but we don't overwrite the initial failure. And because we want to see the actual results and we want to see how they evolve and mature over time, so that we are keeping these snapshots as our evidence of how they've evolved, what the success rates look like. But ours will look different. We'll have lower success rates than what your pairwise testing will do, because you're recording when it's finally passed and we're capturing all of the data.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Yep.
Anyone have any questions on that? No. Okay, so and underneath here, I also want to give you a perspective. So if we're looking at so I can see here that we've had some testing going on already today. We leave this up in the NC STUI architecture to allow for wallets to do continuous testing and can continue to evolve their implementations against the architecture. So I can see here this morning, someone's been testing, Animo has been testing with the Funky wallet. I can see that they have initiated their session using the DC API, and they've gone all the way through successfully to having a successful session ID created. We can see here that we have credentials come through, a user PID coming through, and all the way through to a successful result on the credential side based on their presentation. So it's really a great insight here for our relying parties, because at some point, the Bank of NIST is going to need to be able to rely on these presentations to meet their KYC CIP policy requirements for the bank itself. Does that make sense?
And so this will log the results.
That's correct. And so we can continue to apply fidelity to this, add shared signals to it. We can add a number of different things so that that starts to become a rich experience for our financial institutions. So we're essentially bridging, we're building an awareness of state between the financial institution and the wallet on the presentation, including all what's happened, whether it's an error and where the error has occurred. So they have the ability, without a direct relationship with that wallet, to be able to start to manage that which is their customer trying to open an account with full awareness of the information in behind. So this is the true next generation, the next evolution of the wallet standard verifier implementation piece for relying parties. So I'll go back here now and I'll ask Oliver. So we have a fresh book here this morning with no oh, someone started already. Google and Skitalis have started. That's okay. I love it. So what you can see is that we started this as of 8 o'clock this time, and we can see that we've had a few transactions already occur from both Google and Skitalis. And so Oliver, are you able to share your screen and do a wallet transaction?
I'm able to share my screen. Just send a sharing request to the meeting host.
I think I approve that. Is that...
We'll try again, Oliver.
Yep. All right, so this is the Microsoft relying party that uses the Meta verifier to request and verify credentials. So this is just, very similar to the demos that you saw before. So I'm using, so So I'm testing as a Matter. So I'm using the multipass wallet. I'm using the OpenID for EP unsigned, unencrypted protocol, the C API, obviously. I'm also going to use the same device flow. So in this case, I'm going to request MDL name only. So it's gonna be an ISO MDoc that is expected on the verifier side. So this view can be actually disabled, but I didn't disable that yet. So what you can see here is, so I'm getting the sharing screen from the Android platform. I'm gonna select the multipass wallet. Now I'm getting into the wallet where I can see the requested information, authenticate myself, and then the information is shared with the meta verifier, and the meta verifier is then providing the information, the verified information, to the Microsoft relying party in that case, where you can see that the information from the credential, in that case family name, given name, was retrieved from the MDL. Juliana, do you want me to show anything else, or is this fine?
Can I take over sharing and then I'll just show the log that shows that transaction on our side?
Yeah.
Perfect. So I'm just gonna see this transaction here. It takes a couple of minutes here for us to get the entire set of API calls.
While that's coming in, do you have other wallets also running tests?
Nope. If you want to, you can. Fire away.
Is it the Interop 425 link or?
Yeah.
Okay, then I already did one transaction. Should appear.
I know we have like Marina's on the line still, I think, and
Okay, yeah,
Tino's here, and
yeah, it's Catalyst. If Marina, if you want to be able to do it, run some transactions.
David
Timo.
Simpson might be
Yeah,
able
of
to run-
course, I can do it. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. Begin here so we can see there's matters transaction that they just ran.
Yeah, David's running his.
We see the inner wallet. We've seen Catalyst with a couple of different transactions. And what we're building out, where we're doing more and more work on these insights so that they become more meaningful. So we love to hear feedback from the community on what they would like to see as they test. We're seeing more additional transactions running through. Some of these take a few minutes to update because we're not, this is a POC, it's not production product. Wait a few more. While we're waiting for these to come in, any questions?
Yeah, the next part of the agenda will be to kind of go through sequentially and kind of get the testimonials from the team, so they can kind of do that on the pairwise and the NIST architecture as well.
Seeing more coming in from Animal, more coming in from Google, Skidhallet as well, and Matter as well.
I can see a couple are going through with fails, so if anybody wants to triage live, then they're welcome to.
Sadly, Jad's not with us today because.
So he might not be able to look at the history.
Yeah, he has to go into the verifier to see it.
I
Oliver
see.
might be able to, but that's not my lane.
Okay.
And it's a holiday in the UK and tests.
Got it.
So you will see some of these passes change, fails change to passes as the last bits of the verifier API calls come in. So it updates automatically. So you can see these success rates changing here.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, it takes a few minutes for it to fully update. So just let me know when you've wallet has finished running your transactions. But you can see we're able to manage multi-threaded, which is what a natural environment would be for a relying party.
We have a total of 4 wallets who've been running tests, is that right? Or 5?
1, 2,
6.
3, 4, 5, but Google has 2 wallets of 6.
Great.
Success rate starting to come up a bit here.
Yeah, they went from 67% to 100% pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, but as people keep, transacting,
Yeah,
it'll go
they're
down again
adjusting.
until all the API calls complete and the claims have been extracted on the other side. And that's it. I will use that as a segue to say that the claims extraction piece through to the consumption of them by the relying party is an important area with respect to security as well as regulation. So we have competing regulations here, or I would call them stacking regulations. So in the European context, in this scenario, in financial institution, they'll have NIS2, they will have DORA, they will have GDPR at a minimum on the IAM platform side, as well as the requirements for EIS. So when we're looking at this from a relying party adoption, we must, on the IAM platform, we must satisfy all those regulatory requirements, not just EIS implementing acts and the ARF. So that's an incredibly important consideration here on what happens after the claims after the verifier verifies and establishes session ID, and the claims are extracted. They must all now then be subject to those additional regulations for financial institutions in the European context. So just raise your hand, wallets, when you're done.
You're done, Timo?
Yeah.
Okay. You're done yours?
I think so. And it's CM wallet, I'm guessing David is doing
Yeah, he was doing the other one.
the other one.
David, are you done?
Yeah.
And I see multiple.
You're done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Amazing.
Got 4 done, 5 done. You're missing Marina, are you done?
Yes, we have finished.
Oliver? Yeah.
Oliver, are you done?
Yeah, I'm done. Yeah.
Yeah, so here we're seeing, I think this is a stabilizing now. Yeah, so we're seeing some pretty good success rates here. The first one, the OpenID VP, the first Duckle query, I think we had some early failures down here, but those resolved into successes. So that's why you're seeing this lower
Slightly lower,
success rate
yeah.
here, but these are pretty impressive results here now.
Yeah.
Even from a week ago.
Mhm.
And that's incredibly impressive speaks volumes to the wallets and the verifiers in this case matter, as well as the standards development, all moving in lockstep towards increasing the success rates here. So it's quite a powerful story from our perspective.
Yeah, agreed. It's awesome. First time I saw this, I was like mind blown. So really cool.
Okay.
So shall we change over to the testimonials and we'll go through like team by team and kind of get some feedback from the group. So I'll go ahead and share my screen back. Okay. All right, so what I was prompting the teams for was for each team, what were your interop learnings? You know, what did you find easy? What was hard? You know, and then just big picture, you know, wishes for the global community, what you'd love to see. I don't think we have a speaker for 1Password on, but I'll just double check in case Nick Steele has made it in. I don't think he's out there. So we'll move on to the next team. So back to Timo, who's been on both the wallet and the verifier side for this.
Yeah, I think definitely later in the specs now, things have become easier. I think also because presentation exchange was removed, we've seen very little interop issues with DC12, or DACL, I should say. So I think that's a good thing. Yeah, what was hard? I think still that a lot of the specifications are moving, and like while we were testing, a new version of the digital credentials API was released, which was automatically pushed to new Chrome version. So you have to make sure you're not on the latest Chrome version, but that's of course something that once everything is stable will not be a problem anymore. And yeah, I think I also hope for the global community to finally converge on some standards and just stick with it, even though it may not be perfect in all ways, but at least then we get global interoperability. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Timo. Moving on. Next.
Yes. Yeah, first of all, thank you for the organization and to all participants. It was really fun, I think, over the last weeks to be part of this and to see that we were really able to close one gap after the other over the weeks. We at Bundesdruckerei, we have already implemented the OpenID for VC tech stack over the last years and are also actively contributing to the stack, so we were very familiar. What was new is the implementation of the DC API, but I think it was really straightforward. And as I already mentioned before, I think the DC API is a really critical building block for building wallets and relying parties for multi-party and multi-device, multi-wallet scenarios. So I'm really looking forward to see the implementations of the DC API in also different platforms. What I really like about the specs over the last month, I think the editors and contributors were not afraid to really re-evaluate some options and also to remove some options in favor of simplicity and to drive interoperability. So I really appreciate this. And yeah, my wishes is that for the global community that more parties will join the club and see how easy it is really to implement this, and that we will see some good applications that are secure, user-friendly, and privacy-preserving. So yeah, that's my.
I'm with you on more joining the club. I think there are others already in the wings planning to join.
Yeah.
So Dirk, with your best imitation of Lee and Helen.
Yeah, they give me a couple of talking points, and I think I mentioned earlier that the way the spec is developed got simpler with DACL was a good thing. So it's easier to implement. And the second point they asked me to make is that, or to state that the spec is in, and also the results we're seeing in these interop tests that we're running gives them and Android the assurance that we're getting to a point where this stuff can be rolled out at scale, right? The Android books operating at scales that makes them often a little nervous to launch things that aren't really vetted. And at this point, they feel like we're getting there where we're really able to say like, yeah, we want to recommend this to our developers at global scale, and we're doing that. So all good.
A huge goal of this project. So
Yeah,
indeed,
yeah.
it's good. It's good they're there.
Which is a global community. Let's get the spec finished. I would say this is now me talking. Okay. Let's get the spec finished. And I also really, this is, I guess, more backward looking forward. I personally really like how we got together, like different parts of the community that maybe a year or two ago were a little suspicious of each other, like over each of our sort of intentions. And I feel like we all know each other better, learned that we're all in it together to try something. I guess it's just nice to see this community get together and let's keep at it.
Keep going. Yeah. Very good. Thank you so much, Dirk. David, over to you.
Sure, absolutely. So yeah, I love interoperability events. Our project, Multipass, been to Interop events, I think, for the last 5 or 6 years in ISO. And last year, we started implementing the OpenID Foundation standards, OpenID for VP, as part of the Funke project. And that was back before the DC API, when it was UI schemes, presentation exchange, and that was quite difficult. So the new standard with the DC API and DAGL, like others have said, is a lot simpler, a lot better. I want to thank the foundation for actually organizing this Interop event. It's been great working with other partners in the ecosystem. Really good back and forth that we had on the Slack channel. That's been very helpful. And also the editors of OpenID for VP been very receptive to feedback from implementers like myself and others. So as for the wishes for the global community, want to see more browsers and also more mobile operating systems pick this up so we can implement it, and our users can have like a uniform experience. So present on the digital ID will not be something where you have to read a complex concept prompt. I was just throwing myself under the bus right there. So yeah, it's been a really great process, and I'm looking forward to doing more of this. Thank you.
Thanks for the comments. Over to Oliver on the Matter side.
Yeah, so I think having a well-defined specification like OpenID Foundation together with DC API made it relatively straightforward to implement the verifier part. Also that we have now a shared query language across ISO MDLs or MDocs and SD shorts made it very easy to support additional credential formats with minimal duplication. So we didn't have SD short before this event, so it was relatively easy to add SD short VC support to our pre-prod environment. Again, because of the new query language. It's also great to have support for cross and same device flows without any extra work when using the DC API. The QR code and the platform APIs, they work very, like in the same fashion for wallets without any extra effort. And I'm also looking forward to more CTAP hybrid transports like NFC, ultra bandwidth, and so on. I think what was hard, like what was always hard since I'm also attending, so I've been attending also these Interop events for a couple of years. Also organized some of them myself. Certificate management was always a particular challenge in these events. So the certificates that are used by the issuers to sign the credentials. So for this event, we built a dedicated sync tool to ensure our verifier always had the latest certificates. And especially because our verifier has very strict checks on the certificates, which was probably very annoying for some of the wallets. And so we would also check the X509 profiles and so on. So some of the participants needed to resubmit their certificate to meet the requirements, and that was actually the most common source of errors during interop testing. So it was not about the actual protocol, it was really about the certificate management, that, you know, credentials were signed per certificate, not recognized by the verifier. But that said, so these issues are not OID for VCI, or they are not even DC API specific, they just stem from credential format specific constraints. So what I hope for the future, you know, besides getting the specs finished, which is very soon, I also hope to see even more open collaboration across regions, sectors, such as governments, vendors, open source communities. So I think, yeah, I hope to continue the good work on interop testing, especially fully remote and online interop testing events are really, really great to achieve interoperability at the global scale. Since, you know, you don't require travel budget and you can do the interop tests fully asynchronously. Yeah, I think that's it.
Wonderful, thanks for the comments, Oliver. Over to Panasonic in Trung Duc Nguyen. Trung, are you still with us?
Yes, how to say, yeah. First, I thank you for organization. During implement the specification, I think it's easy. Is how to say. I think I have the same opinion as animal with duck call replaced by yes, I'm sorry. Presentation is replaced by Docker. I think it's easy to our implementation. About the hash point, yes, I think we have many drop version and many formats. We don't know which version, which format need to follow. Yeah. About the question. So I hope in the future the specification is finished soon. Yeah, and we have many interop event as much as possible in the future. Yeah, I think that's all. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Trung, and my hats off to you for the very speedy work, because you were one of the teams who came in a little bit later into the interop process. So great progress from yourself and the Panasonic team. Let's turn over to Skitalis and Marina. Any comments you can share, Marina?
Yeah, our interop experience was smooth and straightforward. It allowed us to strengthen more our implementation by validating the latest protocols and exploring their deeper aspects in collaboration with many other participants' implementations. Skitalis wishes for the global digital identity community to prioritize interoperability across regions and ecosystems, as it is important to have solutions that work seamlessly, ensuring secure and consistent identity experience for users from different parts of the world. Thank you for the invitation to this Interop event and the opportunity to participate in it.
Wonderful, thank you so much, Marina. And I know you all have raced to catch up as well. So great progress. And I know you're playing a key role as a reference implementation for the European stakeholders, but good to hear from several of you the desire for these types of cross-border interoperability efforts. I don't think we have Spruce on the line at the moment. We don't have Libby there, do we? No, I don't think she's been able, she'll be in this afternoon. And I'm not expecting we'll have a speaker from our anonymous corporate partner. But let me hand back to Juliana and see if you have any comments from your side.
I think I can safely say this has been a very, very enlightening experience over the last few months. When we started the project with Nest and architected it, I can safely say our view was interoperability was a long way off. There was a lot of of divergence in implementations and understanding of where the standards were and how much energy was going to take to align them, not just the DC API, but the OpenID for VP spec, plus the implementations, the trust list and White House through the verifier. And it's been incredibly powerful to see how the community, and I think David echoed it, many people here have echoed it, but have come together through these interops and started to converge as opposed to diverge, which in a very short period of time bodes really well for strong interoperability moving forward. From Microsoft's lens, it's critical that that happens for reliant party adoption. We have millions of endpoints and enterprise customers around the world who can benefit from these capabilities and presentations from wallets in a consistent and high assurance and stabilized way at scale. And so this is a pretty powerful statement for us to say that we really feeling much more confident now with these interops and the results, and especially the collaboration among the parties in the community. Matter has stepped up at like in ways that no one can probably understand. But significantly, the folks at NIST, as have all of the wallets and the implementers of the and writers of the specifications themselves. So we are really pleasantly supporting of all of these efforts and think it bodes well for reliant party adoption moving forward.
Fantastic. I don't have the OpenID Foundation on this list, but I should have. So Joseph, maybe you'd like to share some words on the certification suite side, since they essentially acted as a verifier, and I should have put that on the list.
Yeah, so I mean, it's been really great working with everyone in the Interop, having them all run the test suite, and it was fantastic that they managed to do that without really any help from me. I just kind of gave them some links and off they went and told me they passed. So I think that's really shows the value of the test, and it's easy to use. And yeah, we did find some issues in the tests and in various implementations along the way, but that's very much the purpose of the exercise, as we're having these draft tests and draft specs and trying to
both positive and negative tests feedback, right?
Yeah.
Because the intent is to be able to take the test to final along with the specs, right?
Hopefully, yeah, or roughly at the same time.
Roughly the same
yeah. And yeah, I mean, I think the Interop has provided us some really valuable feedback on the specs that we'll incorporate into the specs before they go final. Just make it much easier for everyone that's implementing the final version of the spec. Yeah.
Has there been any like substantive breaking changes that have come through the Interop process?
No breaking changes. I think it's all just been clarifications, little bits of missing language.
Okay, great. It'll just help make it even more clear for those following the spec later. Very good. And I don't have NIST on this list either. Obviously, they were speaking and it helped support the event. But a huge amount of credit for this series, or we could call it a marathon of Interop events, goes to Ryan Luzzo, who said this is probably would be a good idea, not just for the NIST NCCOE project, but also for a wider set of wallets and verifiers to be able to prove out the spec. So at his suggestion, we kind of kicked things off with a lot of question marks on how exactly this would work. And my thanks to all the implementers who know that I've been trying to coordinate this off the side of my desk, and it's been quite the journey, but amazing to see all of the results that we've gotten to. So moving on to the last chapter in our conversation here, I did have one quote from 1Password in their absence. I'll read it out for them. 1Password is excited to be involved as a wallet and support the adoption of OID for VC. Thanks to the excellent documentation and developer community around these initiatives, we quickly built an early example of VC support in 1Password for Android. And quick indeed they were. It was only at IIW in the middle of April, that was around April 8th, that they said, oh, this is happening. This would be interesting. Let's see if we can mobilize our teams and get executive approvals to resource this. And then here they were, you know, April 25th, already testing interoperability on the 25th and the 30th, and again today. So really, really quick work by them. And I feel like I've seen that, right? The specs are, even if you're relatively new to them, people have been able to pick them up and implement in a relatively quick period of time, which is pretty amazing. I'd love to be able to put some time frame on that. Like, how many developer hours does it take if you start from cold to a live implementation? But that's another question for another day. So for 2025 milestones, I'm going to pass over to Joseph first, who's going to speak for the co-chairs on just to recap the next steps. Oliver, if you have any other comments, or any of the other participants in the other standards bodies, W3C and ISO, please be on standby to share a few thoughts, and then I'll talk to some of the other ecosystems at the end here. So Joseph, over to you.
Thanks, Gail. Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, we're trying to get the specs to final as soon as we can. The VP, the verifiable presentation spec, that's already in the public review period and on the path to be published as final before the end of June. The working group's now concentrating very hard on the verifiable credential issuance spec and trying to get that into the public review period as well. And once we've got that in, we'll move on to working on the high assurance interoperability profile height and getting that to final. The aim is to have all these specs stable by the end of June. As the EU have told us, that's an important milestone for them to be able to reference them in the next version of the implementing act. So they would actually have the force of law in the EU then. But it's not just about the EU. There are dependencies out to the ISO working groups where they're waiting for these specs to be final as well, so they can publish updated specs that reference them. Over the next few months, we're going to be doing more interop tests as well, just to try and prove the final versions of these specifications. So we're doing BCI, verifiable credential issuance, at the end of this month. Again, if you'd like to participate, please get in touch with me or Gail. Again, it's just to get that experience and to make any tweaks to the specs before we actually publish them as final, and they become much harder to change. It removes our ability to make breaking changes. We do just want to get as much as we can into them before they go final. And then, yeah, in the middle of June, we'll be doing tests on what will hopefully be the final version of verifiable presentations. So again, if you want to take part, please get in touch. And we're continuing to work on the tests over this time as well. We'll need to update them for the newer versions of the spec. So we're currently targeting draft 24 of verifiable presentations. We'll need to update to the version that's under public review, which is version 28 at the moment. And we're also building out the tests for VCI so that we can have those in time for the Interop as well. Should have first version of those tests, again, targeting the second implementers draft in time for the Interop participants to run them. We've already got some beta tests.
I think that's everything. And we have a QR code for the link to the test on the next at the end of those presentation. Oliver, I thought I'd just throw the baton over to you to see if you had any comments on next steps, like in the ISO standards body, for example. I know you're quite an active contributor there. Any plans related to -7? I think in the absence of, if there's not other speakers for ISO, that you might be able to share a few thoughts.
Yeah, so again, I'm a contributor to W3C and to ISO. I'm not speaking on behalf of them. I'm not actually acting in any official capacity. So when I give this update,
Sure.
I can
Understood.
say, I mean, on DC API, maybe somebody else could actually chime in. But the W3C VCDM 2.0 and standards, basically, they are now in proposed recommendation state. I think there is now time to raise other comments through the working group on ISO 18013 part 5 and part 7. So ISO is working on a revision 2 of part 5, which will have a lot of really nice features, such as MSO revocation, where one of the options will be the IETF status list. We'll also have a new request structure there, and we're also working on something that is called the reader certificate list. also, there's also active discussion on CKPs, how to incorporate that. We have, a new Bluetooth L2 cap profile. That's going to happen in the course of the second edition of Part 5. So we have a working group meeting later this month, a WG10 meeting where we will decide on the next steps. So I think, but I don't expect, or actually I expect that the second edition might be published by the end of the year. Ballot will obviously start sooner. But again, so please take this with a grain of salt. Part 7, second edition, the ballot, I think, to my knowledge, is already over. So I think there's still some internal comment resolution process in some committees that are pending. But I think after that, I do expect that Part 7 revision 2 is going to be published. And then we're already working on a third edition, which will, define this DACL-based profile, probably as an NXD. So that's still something the working group has to, finalize and decide on. So again, I can't really speak on behalf of the working group, but that's basically the idea that we will keep working on adding a new annex to Part 7 with DC API plus OpenID for EP final 1.0. In parallel, there's also WG4, who is working on the 23220 series. So we have a very active collaboration with the Part 3 editor, which, Part 3 is about the issuing building blocks for the issuance of digital credentials or MDocs. So the idea there is to also align with the OpenID Foundation to define a profile, probably based on hype. So there's still active discussion. But and again, Joseph, I think you're also involved in this discussion if you want to share more ideas. I think timeline for this is also around June. And then there's also other work items in that WG4 that might not be super related to our work here in the OpenID Foundation, but will be they're also adjacent to this work. And I think there's other folks from WG4 and WG10 in this room. If you have any other thoughts to share on these specs and the timelines for this year, please feel free to speak up.
Thanks for letting me put you on the spot, Oliver. I'll now try to see if maybe David Zinton or Joseph, if you have any other comments to add on the other standards bodies work.
Yeah, I think we greatly appreciate W3C and ISO and all the other groups that have been working with us constructively, and we've been providing input on their specs, they're providing input on our specs. I think it's a great example of collaboration. And yeah, as I say, we're working pretty closely with ISO now so that they can hopefully reference the final versions of the OpenID specs as they become ready and get updates to 18013 Part 7 and the 23220 Parts 3 and 4 out that reference the OpenID specs in the latest versions, so that everybody's on a consistent version and will hopefully be interoperable and not too many surprises when people try to implement the ISO specs versus the OIDF ones.
Thank you, Joseph. Any other comments on standards? Okay, then I will wrap up some of the comments on ecosystem adoption. So in our next session, so there's a public webinar that will be held at 4:30 Central European time. We'll have some official VIP speakers from the US, NIST. Ryan Galuzzo will represent NIST in the NCCOE project for the European Union, and the DI Wallet program. We'll have Paolo De Rosa speaking as CTO and leader of the architectural reference framework work there. And then for the California DMV, Ajay Gupta, who's the head of digital transformation. And then for Japan, we'll have Soshi speaking on behalf of the Japanese government and sharing his observations. So those are 4 of the most active governments who've been sharing some of their requirements and have already selected or started rolling out the OpenID for verifiable presentation and the DC API specs. So we're looking forward to their formal comments later today. Some of the other jurisdictions, like Switzerland has selected OID for VP. MOSIP has several of the OID for VC family of specs incorporated into their modules, but not fully deployed across their 35 jurisdictions that they're supporting. But that collaboration remains active. And we are expecting other jurisdictions to follow suit in due course, as well as private sector implementers. Clearly, there's additional use cases beyond the open a bank account and other relying party segments that we expect this will be supporting. For example, the OpenID Foundation partnered with California and the DMV to do hackathons last autumn, where we saw healthcare use cases and use cases for farmers that were lower income farmers, and several other financial services use cases, et cetera. So we're excited to see that breadth coming through as well. So I think that brings us on to our Q&A section at the end. So I put into the chat as well, in case we can't hear your voice. This is informal at this stage, so if you have any questions for anyone who's been speaking around the Interop experience, any questions on the specs for the co-chairs, any of this other standards experts, happy to hear those questions in the chat or verbally. We have plenty of time, and we might even end a little bit early. So any questions or further comments? Not hearing anything at the moment. I'll still keep an eye on the chat. And then I'll just pop up on the screen the QR codes with the links to the OpenID open source tests, as well as the DCP work group information on that. Okay. So I think that will conclude the formal portion of the agenda. The only other thing that I have in my back pocket, Juliana, is the additional videos of the use cases we didn't go through. So there are probably about another 10 minutes worth of use cases with the matter verifier, the NIST architecture that we could show. But otherwise, I think I can wrap up the formal portion of the agenda here, and I'll just play those in the background for a few minutes, and I'll put a note in the chat, but they'll be available for people to look at. All right, we can put things on mute, and I will thank everybody for their time. Thank you for this rigorous preparation, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.